Hey friends, Al Iverson here. It's time for another one of your email authentication and deliverability questions answered. This time around, I'm going to talk about Microsoft authentication related failures or rejections, bounce backs. What are they and what can you do about them? And as you might have guessed, this all relates to the brand new rejections that people are seeing, the bounces that people are getting back from Microsoft related to their new bulk sender requirements. I'm going to touch on four common scenarios relating to email authentication and alignment for SPF, DKIM, DMARC, and what you can do and what you should worry about or shouldn't worry about for all of these. Scenario number one. So let's say you're sending emails from your ESP or email newsletter platform. You've got everything configured properly for email authentication. SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are in place and working just fine, but you're still getting intermittent rejections back from Microsoft, and those rejections specifically refer to an SPF failure. So they say SPF equals fail. Now, what you should do there is look, of course, make sure SPF and DKIM are configured properly, but look and see, are those bounces, those rejections, are they asynchronous, meaning are they delayed? Are they coming back post send? Whether it be minutes or hours later, the point being that they're rejections that the sending platform was not able to capture in line while attempting to send the message. Message was handed off, it went somewhere, and then it came back as a bounce. If you're seeing that, that's a good sign that those are forwarded email messages. Microsoft's new bulk sender requirements are very specific here. They require that SPF and DKIM always pass for every message being sent. So in the case of email forwarding, Sender Policy Framework is an IP-based system, and it's a last hop system, meaning that SPF checks the server that connected to it. It doesn't know about servers prior to the most recent one connecting to it. So if a message went through three or four servers, SPF checking being handled by a mailbox provider is only going to check the last one. The net there, long story short, is that email forwarding, especially the old school methodology of dot forward or Unix forwarding, or think of higher ed alumni forwarding, the way that typically works, the way that's worked for years, is not really compatible with SPF email authentication. And with Microsoft requiring all messages pass SPF authentication, it means you're going to have a small percentage of email that's being forwarded to Microsoft mailboxes, and those forwards are going to cause SPF failures, and those messages are going to be rejected. Make a note of it, be aware of it, but you are not in a position to prevent that from happening. SPF failures are going to happen because of that, and as long as Microsoft is specifically requiring that every single message sent by a bulk sender must pass SPF, you're going to have some failures. You're going to have a few rejections as a result of that. Next up, DMARC failures. So you know that you're sending email messages that say they're passing SPF and DKIM, but you're getting rejections back that specifically say DMARC equals fail. Now, in this scenario, look at the DKIM header. When you view the source or view the headers for an email message, there is a hidden header called the DKIM signature header, and it'll have a responsible domain. It'll have a domain setting in there. Look at that domain. Is it actually your domain? Or is it a default domain that a platform might be adding without you realizing it? Now, a lot of email send platforms, whether it be Google or Microsoft, they've got Microsoft uses on Microsoft.com. Google's got their own special domain, but also a lot of ESP platforms, email service providers, email newsletter tools, will add their own DKIM signature, both for tracking and for participation in Yahoo's feedback loop feed. They require DKIM for that. That's an easy way for platforms with a lot of domains being sent from their platform. That's an easy way for them to participate in the Yahoo FBL. So they add this DKIM signature for their domain, not for your domain. That's okay, but make sure you are also configuring the platform so that you're signing DKIM with your domain as well. In the cases of this failure where it says DMARC is failing, even though you think it should pass because it says DKIM pass, the DKIM's probably not being signed with your domain specifically. So that's the miss there, right? A lot of these platforms will have a specific set of steps that you need to go through, like to set up your sending domain or authorize your custom domain, that sort of thing. You need to look for that and how to set up DKIM specifically so that you are signing DKIM, signing email authentication, domain authentication as your domain and not just as the default domain for that sending provider. Next up, I want to talk about wonky intermittent failures. Let's say the scenario is that every once in a while you just get an unexpected rejection that says SPF fail or DKIM fail. Oftentimes this is going to be related to DNS craziness. Sometimes things go wrong with DNS and it can be fussy and finicky, and it can be very intermittent. If you're responsible for the platform, you can check the infrastructure and DNS settings. A lot of people, a lot of platforms, when they set up DNS, it's a group of servers, and one or more servers in the group could be giving bad results or be misconfigured. That's very much why you might have a specific percentage of results that aren't correct, that don't match the others. But a lot of times, that might not be in your control, and that's okay. If you can, though, do that, if you can, for example, adjust the TTL setting for the domain. The TTL is caching, the DNS cache. How long should DNS live in the world in DNS servers being cached before it is discarded, and then the next query will query it anew from the authoritative server where the data actually lives. People tend to handle TTL a little bit differently depending on their point of view on it. Long TTLs are good for caching and reducing traffic and overhead, but nowadays a lot of people really prefer shorter TTLs. They're better for making sure that changes show up quickly, or when you're doing things with dynamic settings, with special types of functionality where you might want to make sure that results are cached for as little as possible, as sometimes almost not at all. Now, again, this is very technical, and frankly, you might not be able to do something about that. Why would I cover this in a video if I'm going to tell you, hey, you probably can't fix it? I wanted to be honest and upfront here. This is a question that people have been asking about lately because people do see intermittent DNS issues causing deliverability problems sometimes. Every once in a while, I might see, a tiny fraction of mail get rejected and say that the rejections might say that mail's failing SPF checks or failing DKIM checks, when they know, or at least they think they know, that the mail they're sending is authenticated correctly. Be aware of it, check it, use the online checking tools like About My Email to make sure that everything you send when you test that it's authenticating properly. But beyond that, there might not be anything you can do about it, and that's okay. And finally, almost a bonus question here. Here's an example of a question a client asked me just a couple of days ago. He said their mail is getting delivered, but when they check their DMARC reporting, they see tons of SPF alignment failures, wanted to know what they could do to prevent those failures. I'm going to tell you exactly what I told them, and that remember that lack of SPF alignment is not a failure condition, right? Just because messages do not align, do not pass SPF alignment checks, doesn't mean that your mail is going to get rejected or that you're going to have some sort of authentication or deliverability problem. Here's an example. When we talk about alignment, here's what we mean. Alignment means that the domain in an email authentication header matches the visible from address, the visible from header. Here's an example of email sent from an ESP where the return path domain, the SMTP envelope where SPF is checked, does not match the visible from domain. So that's an example of SPF alignment failure. SPF alignment is not happening here. That's okay, though. This is how a lot of email service providers are configured because DKIM is aligned. See, the DKIM header, the domains are matching. That's going to pass DKIM. That's going to pass DMARC. So remember, DMARC doesn't require SPF alignment. It requires SPF or DKIM alignment. Either is okay. So if you're not aligning with SPF, that's okay, as long as you're aligning with DKIM. Now, I did a whole video about this previously, so here's a link to that if you want to go into that in any more depth. And if you are an Amazon SES user, as was the client who asked about this, Amazon's actually got a guide where they'll help you configure a specific mail from domain, customize your mail from domain so that it reflects your actual domain. In other words, it'll let you customize the SPF domain so that it does align with your visible from domain. Comes in very handy in case you want to minimize the amount of mail that doesn't pass SPF alignment checks. There's a link to that as well. All right, that's everything I had for you today. I hope you found this interesting. Thanks so much for watching. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or feedback, especially if you've got a question, something that might be good to answer in a follow-up, please drop me a line at al.iverson@valimail.com. And don't forget to visit our website at valimail.com when you're ready to embark upon your DMARC journey.